universal design for learning is about reducing or eliminating barriers, right? So any barrier that prevents or that inhibits or that slows down the progress of learning for a student, what universal design for learning does is it makes you focus on what is the barrier and how do I remove it, right? It's not about the student being able to overcome the barrier that they have. No, it's what can we do in that student's environment, or the way we present information, or the way we make them access information, or the way that we assess whether or not they've understood something. What do we do to tailor, to modify, so that those barriers get out of the way for that student? We can see their understanding of the concept. So there's three main pieces, the what, the how, and the why of universal design for learning. One is about how you present information, right? So that's the content, and differing, so having different ways to present that information. The second one is about how students actually express what they know, right? So how do you get a sense of if students, how do students even check for themselves that they're understanding this concept, and differing how you do that. And then the last one is about the stimulation piece. So what's motivating, or what's the engagement part that's drawing the kids into that learning process, into that learning progress. So those are the three main ideas behind universal design for learning. And so when teachers are planning a lesson and they want to apply this UDL principle, they're asking themselves, okay, given the nature of my students and the understanding of where my students are at, how am I going to vary how I deliver this and what content I use, right? Not just text, but images. How am I going to vary how I check their understanding, right? And how am I going to vary or tap into the interest, so I engage them in the process of what I need to get through, right? So that's what a UDL is. So let's look at a concrete example in poetry, and take a look at how this plays out for a teacher. So the student, grade 11 student, there's this poetry assignment. So when you think of poetry assignment, what's the first thing that comes to mind? So let's say you're in school, you're in grade 11, teacher says, okay guys, you have a poetry assignment. Go ahead in the chat box, tell me what immediately comes to mind when you hear poetry assignment. And the reason why I ask that is because we've gone through so many years of this formal type of schooling where we're used to this traditional way of both delivering content and assessing content and checking for understanding. And what UDL is saying is you need to break that, right? So, Garrick, thank you. So words, right? So it's the teacher, talking or sharing words, or it's the student that's going to be physically writing words. Well, in this particular assignment, the student actually was looking up different people sharing poetry and found this spoken word talent show, right, on YouTube. And she's like, wow, that's pretty cool. And that kind of inspired her, right? And so she wanted to do her own. So what did she do next? Well, notice it's who's leading this, right? The student is dictating what the assignment is, not the teacher. That's the first big one. And what the teacher did is allowed for that flexibility. So now she works with the teacher, brainstorms idea, make sure that the teacher has certain expectations of what she needs. The student needs to be able to demonstrate in terms of learning, so she makes sure that she makes it very clear for the student in terms of, hey student, this is what I need you to learn at the end of this assignment. So let's make sure that whatever you do aligns with that and those standards. And then she goes on and she selects. She starts writing some drafts of poems, submits them to her teacher, gets some feedback on them. She then records some classmates doing their own versions of spoken words, and she analyzes the classmates' work, and that then tweaks what she decides to do for her poem, and then she does that final paper that she decides the final paper to then demonstrate her learning of that poetry assignment. So if we go through it, the way that the information was presented was completely flipped, right? Presenting and teaching the student about poetry. It was a student who was the one who actively went out searching for the information, who watched other students and reflected and analyzed kind of what was good and what was bad, and kind of learned through a different medium than a traditional teacher. The other way is how the student actually expressed what they knew, right? So decided to use something different, which was a spoken word type way of articulating or verbally communicating her understanding of that poetry assignment. And then the last piece is, the engagement piece, right? So notice, and I called it out in the beginning, it was her that took the leadership, who took the ownership, right, to design the format of what she was going to do. She had to self-regulate herself and decided, what am I going to do to demonstrate? I talked with my teacher, right, so took the proactivity, talked with her. If I do this, teacher, will it meet, will I be able to learn all the things I need to learn and be able to meet those expectations? Teacher, they aligned on it, great. And then she went through and executed on it, right? So the teacher allowed for those different things to happen. It fit those different criteria, so which means she universally designed that task, and that's an example of the teacher creating an opportunity to personalize learning for a student during this poetry assignment.